Hello and welcome back to the Cricket Draft Show, where we are very much at the business end of the Big Bash. The eliminator, the knockout, and the final is just around the corner. The regular season is done. Points have been scored by players, and players have scored some points across various different teams. My name's Dan Jadzevics. I'm your host. I'm joined by Chris Dixon, our game expert, and Dan Weston, our analyst. If you're new around here, consider subscribing to the channel. There'll be more content coming throughout the course of this year. Like the video for us as well, it'll be massively helpful. Any comments, thoughts, questions, drop them below and we'll get back to you as quick as we possibly can. But guys, that's it. The regular season's done. We don't have to worry about 4 of the teams anymore. They're cooked. All the players are finished. They're in Cabo or wherever they've gone off for their holidays. I don't know where they go. But anyway, how are you both and how's your teams looking?
Doing well, thanks. Yeah, it's been an interesting week this week for me. I've stuck with Fraser McGurk the whole tournament. I was like, kept faith in him that he's going to come good eventually. And I was like, right, the Renegades aren't going to qualify. You've got a home match at Docklands. Time to get him out. So I got him out and he had his best return in the tournament. So I wasn't too happy with that. And then, of course, there was the situation where lots of Thunder players and Sydney Sixers players, the game started, so it counts as the game started, so those players can't be substituted. I was actually aware of the weather, so I saw the weather in advance. I was like, they're probably not going to play, so I made sure I'd had some options available on the bench if they didn't. But I kind of erred on the side of I didn't want to put those players on the bench and then start with the other players. I thought I'd put them on the bench. If they get a game in, they might have a decent game. Looking at the forecast, he was going to be a complete washout or it wasn't going to happen. But having those 5 overs in didn't help. So kind of a bit annoyed there because I had some points on the bench and Mark Security. But overall, just slightly below average week for me and a bit annoyed with Fraser McGurk.
Yeah, poor old Jake Fraser McGurk. He's had a tough run of it, isn't he, in the Big Bash? But I mean, fair play to you and your loyalty up to the final week. It kind of nearly paid off for you, didn't it? But yeah, you have dropped from 213th to 257th overall in the game. So there's a bit of redemption there for you going into these final couple of game weeks. You probably claw yourself back into that top 200. Do you think? Is that possible?
I'll do my best. I'll certainly do my best.
Pleased to hear it. Dan, on the other hand, it's fair to say I think you might have played a bit of a blinder this week with some of your googly use and your tactical genius to bring in some of the players that you did. It saw you climb from 195th to 146th. But tell us how exactly you managed it.
So I managed it probably more by luck than judgment. So I had 4 players in the rain-off game, including my captain, which wasn't the smartest thing for me to do. But Jake Fraser McGurk and Glenn Maxwell got over 600 points between them, which definitely helps. Nathan Ellis got over 100 as well, but in probably quite an unexpected way after only bowling 1 over. So I'll take the 700 plus from those 3 guys. Rest of them, storing us apart, was pretty much a loss for me. But yeah, I'll definitely take that. And I took the 12th man googly as well because I had to get that done at some point, and got 66 points from Fergus O'Neill. So that worked pretty nicely. So yeah, overall pretty happy with the week, albeit still want to try and push towards that top 100.
You still got your googly to play, Chris?
I do. I was going to play it this week, but the weather stopped me with the forecast, and then having so many Dixons and Thunder players, it wasn't worth me playing this week. In hindsight, it actually would have worked well because the game did start and those players played but didn't get many points and had points on the bench. But on the face of it, it wasn't wise to play it this week with that with the wet weather forecast there. So
keep the powder
in
dry.
hindsight, it would have been good, but it was the right decision on the face of it, at least.
Hey, trust the process, Chris. You're the game expert for a reason. I had 6 players in the Sydney Derby that got washed out, but 3 from either side. So I think my week was pretty much a non-starter before it even begun. And it was I was watching it, and obviously I saw the covers come on, and it got wetter and wetter and wetter. And I thought, well, this is an absolute bust. There was part of me that thought, Chris, that you would have adapted. You would have seen the weather forecast and you would have bailed them out, but you didn't quite do that. So actually, from 6 players, because I had Sam Constance in my team, I finished with -6 points from 6 of my players, which saw me fall from 416th to 496th. So I'm just clinging into the top 500. Mitch Owen, though, he seems to be doing well for me. Still got the captain's armband, picked up 248 points this week. It was a shame I left Cooper Connolly on the bench. He picked up 180, but there was me thinking I was going to be sensible with my Sixers and my Thunders, and it just didn't quite work, did it? But Yeah, there we go. There's where we are. I think I also need to offer Melbourne Stars an apology, plus their fans and their players and their entire organisation, because it turns out that they were in the perfect position to qualify for the eliminators and the knockouts, and I got it completely wrong. But other than the obvious, there's Glenn Maxwell, there's Marcus Stoinis. Are there any other players, Chris, Dan, that you're looking at from the Stars that maybe would have just been phased out over the course of this tournament that you can bring back in relatively cheaply?
Yeah, definitely. Tom Curran, who was injured early in the tournament, is now back, and he's in that all-rounder slot. Batting in batting 7-ish. But there's it's now there's only 4 teams left. There was already a limited kind of amount of all-rounders that kind of had a high featuring both with bat and ball, and he's one of those that is likely to in most games. So he's certainly one to be looking to bring back in. But then there's less chance of him playing as many games as some of the others, because he could easily just play one game and get knocked out. So if they maybe win their game, I might bring them back in, or I look at the kind of composition of whether I can bring him in for this week or not. But if you are looking for Stars plays, he's certainly one of those that I would be looking for, apart from the others you mentioned.
Dan, have you got another one up your sleeve?
Yeah, possibly. I think that for me, the Stars players who we looked to phase out, I actually kept Peter Siddle in my squad. He didn't play. He wasn't in my team last week, but he was this week. Although he didn't have the greatest game today, he's good value, I think. The other Stars player that I had consistently throughout the comp was Ben Duckett, but obviously he's not going to be available now. So I've got my 3 Stars players in already at the moment. I obviously we can change that distribution a little bit for the knockouts, but I would Stoinis, Maxwell, and Siddle, possibly bringing in a Tom Curran as well. I think that's me quite nicely taken care of in terms of their Melbourne Stars.
Yeah, I mean, Peter Siddle, I think I saw something said he was bowling at 148 kilometers per hour in this last game, and has done so and been rewarded with another Melbourne Stars contract for BBL 15. So if you enjoyed him this much, Dan, he'll be there next year for you as well. But let's take a look at the league that everybody cares about, because this is the most important league and nobody cares about any of the other ones. There has been a change at the top, which I think probably the both of you knew. Dan's hiding his smug face there particularly well, but can confirm that Dan Weston has taken the lead in the League of 3, the Cricket Draft Show League is what I guess is probably the technical term for it. But you picked up 867 points this game week, which saw you move up to 6,906 overall. Chris, that obviously means that you've slipped down into second. Don't worry, I don't think there's a chance of you slipping to third anytime soon. 631 game week points, 6,589 total points, which means you're 317 points behind Dan Weston with that googly left to play going in these final 3 game weeks. And myself, 455 game week points, 5,859 points. I'm 1,047 points behind Dan Weston, and I'm just hopeful that I might be able to creep through the 6,000 mark by the end of the tournament. But fancy making up 317 points, Chris?
I know it's very possible. I've got a googly up with Bell, and this is the stage of the competition where it can fluctuate quite a lot, because there's several transfers every week. There's teams getting knocked out. If you get your strategy right, or you take a punt on a team, when you're picking a team that's going to go through, and you kind of maybe put your eggs in one basket, you can easily get that back. So it's not impossible. This is the stage where you can really make those big gains and play some risky strategies.
Well, let's look ahead to game week 10 then. There is a lot that can be done. There are 4 free transfers available to all of us as directors of crickets across the course of the game, plus another 3 penalty transfers if you so wish to use them. So you could completely gut your squad if you wanted to, and completely, not start from fresh, but not far away. And are you going to pick up you can have 5 players in the team from the starting 11. So that makes it a little bit more interesting too. There are possibilities about Hobart and the Sydney Sixers potentially playing 3 times across the course of these final 3 weeks or 3 weeks. There's options. I'm going to go back to you, Chris, because I believe you're probably as the game expert, I'm going to rely on you to do your absolute best to kind of explain how the remainder of the BBL works and what the possibilities are with teams and players playing more than once across the course of these game weeks 10, 11 and 12.
Yeah, so essentially any of the teams could play 3 times. So in the qualifier, you've got first v second. If the loser of that then wins their next game against the winner of the eliminator, then they will play 3 times in order to get to the final. Or if someone in the eliminator gets their way to the final, then they will also play 3 times. So all the teams have the potential to play 3 games. But the teams that are most likely to play the most games are the teams in the qualifier, because no matter if they win or lose, they're guaranteed a minimum of 2, whereas in the eliminator, you're only guaranteed that 1 game. So you may want to hedge your bets and maybe look slightly more towards those teams. But then again, if you've got room to catch up and you want to take a risky strategy that could pay off, then you may want to maybe look to one of those 2 then in the eliminator and really go big on them, because then that could pay off, because most people will be looking towards the other team. So in terms of you're looking at the chances, then those 2 teams that are in the qualifier are the most likely to play the most games and to go on to win the competition. But if you want to play a riskier strategy that could pay off, because most people won't be looking that way, then you can look to maybe towards the Stars or the Thunder for some points there.
Sounds like I'm looking at Melbourne Stars and the Sydney Thunder then, Chris. Dan, let's go to you then. Who looking ahead, you are the man in pole position. You're the top of our league. Who are your players that are nailed on? Who are the players that you're thinking about bringing in? Obviously, we spoke about Steve Smith. He's got to go now. You've got to find a replacement for Steve Smith in your team. What other players are on their way out? Who are the potential replacements? I realise you might be getting a bit like Chris at the start of the tournament here. You might not want to give your players away just yet.
Okay, so we've got 4 free transfers. Well, I've already got 9 players from qualified teams in my starting 11, so I don't think I need to do a drastic overhaul. I'm pretty reasonably certain, I should say, to not look at penalty transfers. So I'll give that one away straight away. The 4 players, if you look at my 11, it will be obvious who I take out. So I don't even mind talking about that. Steve Smith, Sam Constas, likely away with the Australia team, and Jake Fraser-McGurk and Will Sutherland are now knocked out of the tournament. So all 4 have been good contributors for me, bits and pieces, various stages of the tournament. So they go away with my thanks and best wishes for the rest of the year. And I gives me about 31 million to spend on replacements. I have just over $1 million spare that I haven't used this game week, so about 31 million. My challenge probably would be whether I want to go for an even split of players across the teams or not, and how that might manifest itself. Potentially could think about building some form of a model to work out which teams have got more chance of playing more games, but I definitely think that would be quite extreme. Might try it if it's quick. Let's see. So in terms of who I want to bring in, look, I think Chris has already mentioned Tom Curran, so he's really going to take Will Sutherland's place. I've got 3 batters that I need to find, so yeah, don't quite know yet who they'll be, but I'm sure that there'll be some thorough research going in over the next day or so.
Get the spreadsheets out. Get the
Just want to climb
spreadsheets
as
out.
high as you can up the leaderboard. You're just trying to ward me off. Where's your intention?
Yeah,
just gonna keep you a spot in our league.
Well, if I ward you off, I reckon the league table takes care of itself. That's what I'm saying. The 300 points, I guess it kind of feels like a decent amount, but look, I don't know how to play these knockout stages in this game. I've never done it before. I reckon you've got a lot more knowledge of this kind of key stage. So I'm happy if I win the mini league. I'll be pretty happy, and hopefully that gets towards the top 100 in the game.
Chris, how about you? Who are the players packing their bags and leaving Chris Dixon's cricket club?
Yeah, so it's pretty much a case of those that aren't playing, the most expensive players that aren't playing, to get those out. I'm also in a position where I've got a majority of my players I've already qualified. Towards the back end of the league stages, I was looking to offload those that were unlikely to qualify, and also I saw the Stars in 5th place were the most likely team that hadn't already qualified going into this week to then qualify. And they went on to do so I brought in 2 of their players, which also helped. And in terms of who I'm going to bring in, I'm not 100% sure at this stage, and if I was, I wouldn't be saying anyway. So yeah, I know I'm going out, but who I'm going to bring in, I need to really have a think about that over the coming day, and decide my strategy for these last 3 game weeks.
Fair enough. I'll be honest with you. I'm in a pretty similar situation in the fact that I know that Alex Carey, Steve Smith, Fergus O'Neill have definitely got to go. Sam Constas is part of the Australian touring squad to Sri Lanka. So we haven't quite mastered figuring out as to what Cricket Australia's kind of communications are as to whether they will or won't be available. But we're siding on the fact that a lot of these players aren't going to be available for these knockouts, for the ones that are associated to the Tour of Sri Lanka. So therefore, Sam Constas will be another one that needs to go. In terms of players that I could bring in, I don't have a single Melbourne Star. That's how much I burnt my bridges with the Melbourne Stars after the absolute heartbreak that I endured in game week 3 with the double captain saga with Tom Curran and Marcus Stoinis. So there is going to be somewhere that I'm going to need to go and harvest some players from. Who I'm going to go and get, I don't know. I love the idea of Maxwell. He seems to be a real kind of pressure back end of the tournament player that just steps up, and if that's something that could work, that would be fantastic. Maybe Nikhil Chowdhury at the Hurricanes as well. Just bring another guy in there in purple would be quite nice, although he fits a pretty congested all-rounder spot for me, which potentially could be better used with a Maxwell or with a Tom Curran or a Stoinis, as we've just spoken about. But yeah, I mean, if I can break 6,000 points, I'll be pretty happy, chaps. In terms of the real top point scorers, though, the top 10 of the overall cricket draft league of this competition is currently separated by 632 points. That's Stuart in first place. He has a massive 454 point lead over second place. Just to kind of highlight how close it is from second to 10th all the way down. There's then a further 5 teams within 100 points of the top 10 as well. We also had Carl's team scored over 1,500 points in game week 9. So there are still so many points available in these games across the course of game week 10, game week 11, and game week 12, if you can get your players right, which is, as Chris, you said, incredibly important. But look, good luck for the knockouts, chaps, and everybody watching the video. Let us know how your season's gone so far. Let us know who your player of the tournament has been so far. And let us know whether you are actually in a shot with winning one of your leagues. Maybe it's the league overall. Who knows? Maybe you've taken some advice from Chris and Dan and you've actually kind of put it on board and you've built the master team better than what they were able to do. But there we go. Thank you for watching. And we will see you ahead of the BBL final, which is on Monday, the 27th of January.